The other day, one of my friend was telling me how I'm not very consistent. And truth be told, I think it's hard to be consistent. And today I'm showing up at my worst. I look at this singlet. I normally try to dress up when I get into a video like this. But as you can see, today I'm just showing up even at my worst. So please bear the singlet. And today I'm going to read you a bit more book and read a little bit more from this book. So we're going to in. And also I found my mic. Actually, it turned out that it was in my bag. Like I searched that bag, but it was in the back compartment of the bag. So as you can see, I'm such a messy person. I look at this table. I need advice. Like, how do I clean this table up? Like, it's so messy, right? But anyways, let's get back to reading a book. La 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 la. One thing that I feel like I need to improve on is that I need to improve the Singaporeans. When you talk, right? Actually, sometimes you do not enunciate all the words. So like for example, it's very easy for me to slur my words. So like I can just slur it like that and then bada 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 bo. That's not proper English lah, but I'm trying to work on fixing the smaller parts. And honestly, sometimes I do not listen back. So I think the best way for me to improve is to really listen back and to like sit through 15 minutes of my reading. But no buts. Yeah. Sometimes I don't do that myself. I just like to clock in and get the job done. But yeah. That being said, I've become more conscious about the way I talk. I was talking to someone yesterday and we went out to do some work together. And yeah, the way she talked was very eloquent. Like she enunciated very well. Like it sounded very, I wouldn't even say it's like British or it's like American. It's just very well enunciated. Like the way she spoke was very nice. So I definitely enjoyed that about her. And I think that's something that I'm looking to improve on myself. So for today, we'll be reading chapter 2 called Originality, Ostriches. Okay, so I have no idea. It looks like he is trying to tell you to be original. So let's start. There is something to be said about a truly disastrous meal. A meal forever indelible in the memory because it's so uniquely bad, it can only be deemed an achievement. This sort of meal where everyone involved was definitely trying to do something, it's just not entirely clear what. I'm talking about the long tail stuff, the sort of meals that make you feel as though the fabric of reality is unraveling, the ones that cause you to reassess the fundamentals of capitalism and whether or not you are living in a simulation in which someone failed to properly program this particular restaurant. This excerpt is from a 2021 review of a Michelin-starred restaurant named Bros. Geraldine de Ruyter. Geraldine de Ruyter, a popular food blogger, goes on to describe course after course, 27 of them in all, of what sound more like exhibits at a haunted house than elevated fine dining. Highlights include an oyster loaf that tasted like Newark Airport, a squid of glee leaf infused with droplets of meat molecules, a tasting of 12 different kinds of foam, frozen air, whatever that is, and several pieces of flavoured paper. The final dessert course was a dollop of foam served in a plastic cast of the chef's mouth. Diners were instructed to lick the foam out of the plaster mouth, resulting in a scene the blogger described as something stolen from an Eastern European horror film. The Bros example illustrates a fundamental challenge in creative work, creating something new that people actually want. Creative ideas must offer something that is new, but equally as important, they need to provide some sort of value to people. And by value, I don't mean money. Instead, I mean the concept of utility, the reason why people are drawn to a creative work in the first place, either because it nourishes them, entertains them, expands knowledge, stirs emotions, brings people together, or fulfills more practical needs. In one episode of The Simpsons, Homer invents an everything's okay alarm. The idea is novel, but it solves a problem that no one has. Similarly, the core problem at Bros Restaurant seems to be that in striving to be original and unlike any other dining experience, the chef forgot the most important ingredient, making the food actually taste good. Novelty came, at the expense of value. In a series of studies that I conducted with my graduate student Jin Kim, we were interested in how people balance novelty and value as they search for creative ideas. We asked people to generate ideas in a domain where most people regard themselves as expert, making sandwiches. The participants, we referred to them as chefs, were asked to come up with a novel sandwich recipe. Sometimes we give them specific prompts, but in all versions of the experiment, we asked the chefs how much they prioritize originality in their recipes and how much they focused on making their sandwiches tasty. To ensure that everyone made their sandwiches as appealing as possible, we offered cash prizes for the most liked recipes. Interestingly, we found that our chefs thought that originality would only help. The more novel the recipe, they thought, the more attractive it would be to others. But when we recruited a new group of participants, the customers, who rated the sandwich recipes in terms of how likely they would be to try them, we found exactly the opposite. Customers were significantly less likely to purchase sandwiches from chefs who had focused on being original. In fact, the more original the chefs tried to be, the less willing customers were to try their sandwiches. Given that our chefs seemed to be somewhat blind to how focusing on originality had decreased the appeal of their creations, we dubbed the phenomenon the originality ostrich effect. Was this just a problem for amateur sandwich makers? We also decided to test for the originality ostrich effect among more experienced chefs. With the help of a team of research assistants, we coded data from multiple seasons of the popular show Top Chef. For each episode of the show, our research assistants took note of how the contestants talked about their dish. Did the chefs say they went with an established recipe, or did they try something new? Did they mention creativity, or say they tried to be original in some way? Interestingly, we found that much like our home chefs, focusing on originality dramatically increased contestants' chances of being eliminated from the competition. In fact, when Top Chef's contestants explicitly said they focused on making something original and different from anyone else, they were more than twice as likely to have the worst rated dish and be kicked off the show. In this chapter, we'll discuss why the originality ostrich effect has important implications for surveying, and where we begin our search for successful ideas. The key insight is that when most people set out to be something creative, their minds race to what's never been done before. But rather than looking to what has never been done, you may be more likely to find success by considering where successful ideas have been found in the past. As in archaeology, finds tend to cluster together. So paying attention to where successful ideas have come from can provide valuable information about where promising ideas are likely to be discovered. Past success can be one of the strongest signals that a particular creative direction is worth pursuing. Interestingly, over here, we are talking about how actually the more original the idea, the more likely you are to not succeed. So probably one of the best ways that one can succeed in being creative, in being novel, is actually by doing enough research and being able to conduct enough analysis and maybe do something that people has done before and recreate it. So I think, for example, in my personal experience, one thing that I personally went through is that in my school's entrepreneurial club, normally people will say, try to be more original. Someone has done this before. What makes you different? What makes you better than them? And that really forces us to try to think out of the box. And here's the thing, right? Like, as we said in the previous video, I think people do not need to think out of the box. They actually just need to make modifications to an idea that's actually happened. And so in that sense, I would say that it's very tough to be an entrepreneur. It's very hard to be a thinker when everyone is telling you to come up with original ideas. And most of the time, I feel like we are always looking out for original ideas. That's really me included as well. So probably from this book, one thing that I take away today is do not try to always seek out original ideas, but rather instead try to look for things that people have done before and how we can build on that to improve the idea and to create something of value. Because After all, I always like to talk about the matcha craze in Singapore, right? Because, for example, why the matcha craze can be so, why a matcha stall can become so much more famous is because people have been doing it already. So technically, by recreating something that is popular and recreating a past successful recipe and then giving your own spin onto it, I think that is actually way more likely to succeed, way more likely to get into people's lifestyle because it already fits into someone's lifestyle. And then you build on it and then you become creative rather than coming up with a new item, like for example like a sesame drink that has not been tested. Sure, it's way more original than matcha, but that being said, like matcha will capture the attention of people. So maybe if I were to create a matcha right now, a matcha business, probably I would have the original matcha and I will make tweaks to the existing matcha recipes and see which one catches my attention. And this is what the originality ostrich is about. Basically, take something that worked and replicate it and make or give a spin to it. And that way you should be able. So firstly, my previous takeaway was about when in search of creativity, expand, then lock in. Yeah, like basically look out for more and then like, wow, I forgot the exact term, but basically the whole gist of it is expand, look out for ideas, and then narrow in and lock in on the ones that work. And second, don't be blinded by the concept of originality. Basically, be open-minded, take something that works before and use it in your favor. Yeah. And so yeah, I think I talked about my personal thoughts quite a bit, and I think that this is actually a way better model going ahead because after speaking like this for 2 times, I think I'm learning how to articulate my own thoughts better and I'm learning how to form opinions. So while I might be reading a little bit lesser, I think that I am also emphasizing on my ability to think on my feet. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good start for me. So anyways, I think that's it for today and I hope you enjoyed the reading and enjoying my thoughts. Cheers, 宝宝们。